evening, everyone. My name is Linda Wu. I'm the CEO and founder of a startup called MiDoc. So today I'm going to be sharing you with my founder story and how I navigated away from an already successful career to my dream career. I'm an engineer turned physician turned entrepreneur. But the true motivation of all of this is that I really wanted to create something. I wanted to innovate in the healthcare field and find something to improve people's lives and make them better and make healthcare better and make people healthier. So I didn't know how. I was blindly stumbling around, and that led me to here. So the lessons in the process, so why don't we start? So a little bit about me. I'm an assistant professor at Washington University in St. Louis. I teach the innovation pathway at the medical school and also the MD MBA liaison. That is 20% of my job. The other 80% of my job is being a pediatrician at St. Louis Children's Hospital. So what does that mean? I see children admitted to the hospital, I work in the ER, and I see newborn babies. What does it mean to be a pediatrician? Here I am at Parkview up on BJC with 2 of my colleagues and 3 of the residents. If anyone's been there for family or delivered babies, very nice place. This was me doing global health in Brazil, and it was amazing because I got to see what they could use for the very little resources they had to provide the best care they could for their population. And you can't go into a children's hospital without seeing clowns. We never miss a holiday. This is us carving a pumpkin at the NICU. This is baby Pumpkin, a merge between pumpkin and munchkin. And Christmas in July. You know, for all the kids, they don't want to wait until every Christmas, so we bring Santa to visit them in July so they feel special even if they're in the hospital. And to be honest, I've had more pictures with animals while working on the job than I have in my own private life. So this was taken at Camp Braveheart. It's a special camp for children with heart disease. So you think life is good, right? Or actually, what's the other side? Why am I presenting at a business conference? So this is my other life. Like I said, I'm a physician turned entrepreneur. I founded a company called MiDoc, as I also teach at Olin Business School. But before we get into the weed of things, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my personality, and that will make sense later on. So to start, I'm a nomad of the world. I grew up on 3 continents and 4 countries. I was born in China, and from my dad's studies, it took us all the way to Sweden. We then immigrated to Canada, and then finally settled into the United States. All these movements, I've lived in more than 15 cities, so used to the instability of it. And that's very important because in entrepreneurship, there's a lot of instability. You have to be used to it. It's very nimble, and you have to be ready for any and every tactic. So in this constant movement, I think has also led me to my professional ADHD. So people used to ask, what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, here are my lovely parents. They're both mechanical engineers. They used to take work home, these complex, pictures and charts, and explain them to me and have me reproduce them. I used to help my dad fix, radios and bikes because we were too poor to afford new ones. So, of course, I'm going to be an engineer. And this is me in high school. I'm building a bridge here. And despite my parents' opposition, I went and got my bachelor's in engineering and started working at a Department of Defense company in San Diego. So life was great, right? Not really, not quite. Something was missing. Each engineering project would take years to turn around, but I felt like I could do something more. I felt like I needed to do something more in my community. So what did I do? I decided to enroll in medical school. So I started my studies at Chicago College of Osteopathic Medicine. I then went on to Emory in Atlanta for my residency. And then when I finished, I got a job here at Washington University in St. Louis. So life was great. I finished my education. I was working and helping people in my community, and I was also advocating for the most vulnerable patient in the world, the kiddos. But there was still something missing. I wanted to combine my engineering and my medicine to create innovative products to help people, to help them in their lives, to make it easier. And I also wanted to make sense of the healthcare system, if that's even possible. So I thought, okay, well, I have an engineering degree and I have a medical degree. Perfect, right? I can do anything. Well, wasn't working out. In my first year here, I tried networking, I tried thinking of different projects, but nothing was coming to me. Nothing was really working. And when something is not working, I know that you have to pivot. So what does that pivot look like? Well, starting grade 24. I decided to enroll at WashU's Olin Business School and get a focus on healthcare entrepreneurship specifically. I figured that if I went into business, learned the finance, I may be able to meet the people I needed to meet to make my dream happen. And I stayed true to that focus. I took every entrepreneurship class, strategy, innovation, VC class I had to offer. And I also took advantage of all the competitions, entrepreneurship competitions out there, whether small, locally, or nationally, applied to all of them. And here you can see me competing at 2 of them. So that was my big pivot. And for the first time in my life, I felt like this entrepreneurship thing actually started to make sense. I had the tools in my toolbox. And the purpose of this is not that you have to go do an MBA. The purpose is you need to do what makes sense to you to get the tools. You need the tools in your toolbox for you to succeed. And for me, that was my MBA. So what do you do when you have the tools? Well, reconnect with your passion. So does anyone remember the COVID pandemic? I think we're slightly just out of it. Has anyone seen this picture before? No? Kind of circling around during it? Well, that's kind of what the pandemic felt like for me. A little hopeless, but ready for the strong fight. And just for funsies, I recreated it. But to be honest, the COVID pandemic was very difficult for us physicians, especially the frontline physicians. I worked in the ER and I worked in the hospital. Fortunately, as a pediatrician, we were not hit as severely as adult side, but I started seeing reoccurring themes over and over again. And what were those themes? I started seeing a lot of people come into the ER in a bimodal distribution, either too early or too late. What that meant that some people just started with mild symptoms and they were worried, so they came into the ER because they were worried, and rightfully so, because the media had hyped up everything. But they didn't really need to be there at that time. And then I would see other people being too afraid to come in. They would wait at home, and then they would get sicker and sicker. So by the time they did come in, they were on a ventilator and in the ICU. They came in too late. So how can we prevent this? Or what is the cause of it? What is the pain point? It is insufficient, convenient access to medical care at home. Now, a lot of people tend to fall in love with a cool idea or a solution. They think a gadget that is interesting is a solution, but what you really need to do is find the pain point, find the true problem you're trying to solve, and design for it. Because a gadget is not your solution, but solving a problem is. So what was my problem? My problem was we cannot diagnose, triage, or treat patients accurately at home. Now at this time, telemedicine has been around for decades, but it never really took off. And telemedicine was great. You could see and speak to your patients, but one thing was lacking, the physical exam. You cannot perform a physical exam over the computer. And what's most important is your heart and lung exam. So, with that insufficiency, or actually, let me just go back and explain what I mean. So this is Susie. She is now sick. And she internally debates, do I need to go to the doctor? She calls her doctor up, and the doctor can't see her until next week. So she contemplates, well, do I need to go to the ER now? And with that, she wonders, how much time do I have to spend to wait there? How much is this going to cost me? How do I get there? Because I don't drive anymore. One of Susie's friends recommended her to use telemedicine, but Susie wonders, is a physician's diagnosis accurate if they can't examine me? And right now, Susie's options aren't too great. If she chose telemedicine, for me as a doctor, it would be a best guess because I can't do the vital physical exam. So to solve that, I propose this. Why don't you put a stethoscope inside a vest and you put it on and wear it? That way I can hear patients through space. So this was first pitched in my intro to entrepreneurship class. And it was a class project. It did well as a project, and I was going to scrap it. But my professor, the wonderful David Podolian from Clues and Lark Ventures, realized that I had a keen for entrepreneurship. So he actually approached me after the last day of class and be like, are you going to take this and continue? I was like, not really. And he actually strongly encouraged me to do so. So what did I do? I took it and enrolled it as a topic for every Olin kind of entrepreneurship class after that. And I kept working at it and working at it and working at it. And a couple things, when you work at something, become an expert in that topic. Now, I'm a pediatrician. I was designing something for the adult population. The only thing I knew about adult medicine was something I learned years ago in school. So what did I do? I interviewed a lot of adult physicians. And with the feedback I got, I started making improvements, building on my project, getting new feedback, and then kept building again. And the only way to succeed is if you try. So don't be shy to try. I started seeking other technology experts, other personnel, other business people to help me with the different ideas I was coming up with. And the last thing is that your ego might be your biggest hindrance to your success, okay? Because you're not open to all the ideas out there. So check your ego at the door. And the reason I say that is I've heard plenty of stories, but one personally is I was talking to an angel investor on the phone, explaining our product to her, and she'd be like, oh yeah, this makes, let's do this, this makes sense. And I was thinking, she clearly did not get what I just spent 20 minutes explaining to her. And this is not our market, this is not our product. I instantaneously shut it out. But something made me ruminate on the idea in the back of my head for a couple days. And then it was finally like, aha, this really makes sense. That was genius, and why didn't I think about it myself? So this is actually, her idea is actually one of the working models and business segmentation we're actually working on. So even though I knew about checking your ego at the door, I was not open to it at that time, and I had almost fallen fallacy at my own mistake. So through all that work, this is what MiDoc looks like right now. In the outside, you can see patients wears it like they wear a vest. Oh, sorry, I'm being a door rather than a window. And on the inside, you have green stethoscope heads that can listen to the patient, heart and lungs, and then you have red EKG sensors evaluating the electrical health of the heart. Let me make sure I have nothing else I wanted to touch on. Okay. So I've thrown a lot at you, and let's go back a little bit and talk about the design process. I feel like a lot of people here is a little bit familiar. Let me know if it's redundant, but this was supposed to be a beginner presentation, so I just want to make sure we cover all the bases. So one of the first things is to understand your customers. So for example, this picture, what do people see? How many people see a person playing saxophone first? Yeah? And then what about the other side? How many people saw the face? Yeah, you look around, you have kind of even distribution. What about this side? What's your first reaction? What's the first thing you see? Two people? Okay, and tree, yeah, see? Your first reaction is different. And different perspective seek different feedback. And when you design something and work in solo, you're only designed for yourself. You're not designing for other people. Your solution will only fit yourself. But for your business to succeed, you need to design for the majority. So seeking that feedback and learning what people's preferences are is really helpful. Now, this may seem easier said than done. So for example, with MiDoc, I got an array of feedback. The most worrisome feedback is that doctors didn't see the utility of it. They were really settled into their status quo, and they didn't feel the need of something, a device like this, to examine patients at home. But when I talked to patients, more than 90% of them wanted a physical exam through telemedicine, through the comfort of their own home. So different perspective, and hold on to that. We'll get back to that. The other thing is, I actually love this slide. This is one of my favorite slides from one of my professors, Michael Wall, who teaches innovative products. So you have 6 functional areas where you can make improvements and 2 psychological areas for innovation. And functional areas is something like effectiveness, where you make greater achievements. Can somebody think of something that's more effective? It can be your own startup, can be something else. Any volunteers? No? So for us, MiDoc, the increased effectiveness is that you have a physical exam over telemedicine. In terms of efficiency and convenience, it's more efficient because you get the data right away of the exam. You can make a decision now, and the convenience is the patient stays at home. Now, what I find ironic is the simplicity one. The simplicity is simple to say, but actually really hard to do. As an engineer and physician, I've seen many products out there that patients cannot use. Okay, like even things like opening sometimes their medicine bottle, they made it so tricky that people can't figure it out. And that is so important in the consumer space, to make it simple. So what did we do? Sorry, going back a little bit. So to design for simplicity, I thought, what have people done thousands and million times in their lives? Well, they put on a jacket, they put on a vest. So why not build everything into a vest? That way when they see it, they're like, well, I recognize this before. Let's take it, put it on, zip it up, and we take care of everything else. That is the simplicity. Because there's so many competitor products out there that is too complex, and I really don't think patients will be able to use it. Now, of course, you guys understand the safety and economies. The other thing I wanted to touch on is the psychological domains. Don't forget about that. A lot of times people forget and really just try to focus on the functional, but psychological is really important. And the hugest one for us is the feeling, because medical care is not a single-directed relationship. It's not me as a physician telling you as a patient what to do. It's teamwork. So if the patients don't believe in me, don't believe that I'm treating them right, they will not stay adherent to the plan. So this is why it is so important for telemedicine that you have patients that trust you and adhere to the built relationship that you have. Oh, so sorry. Okay. Quickly, I think a lot of people have seen various developmental models. There's so many out there. The one thing I want to touch on is the big thing is make it a cyclical cycle. Do it over and over and again. You know, you learn about something, you design for it, you build it, and you test it, and then you do it all over again. You do it all over again until you have an MVP. Then you do it all over again until you have a product on the shelf, all over again until you have version 2, and continue. But there's so many out there, and some are domain specific. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is leveraging your talent. There's all kinds of types and skills out there, whether you went to school for it or you learned it on the job. We're all very smart people. And in this amazing room, we have the world of knowledge. So learn what your skills are and learn how to harvest those. So what is your strong suit? It could be business, it could be technology, or it could be an expertise. So for me, even though I have an engineering degree, I don't know how to build things anymore. I have an MBA, but I'm no communication or finance expert. But what I do know is I know patients, I know families, I know the pain they go through, and I know what they need. That is my expertise, patient care. And then see, after you know what you have, see what is still needed. So I went out and started recruiting a team of experts in technology, in business development, marketing. And what you want to aim is diversity to cover all domains. And you don't always have to seek something from the outside. You can learn it. We're all very smart. We can learn it and we can become the new expert. But what you really need to focus is that diversity. Okay? And then a quick note about co-founders. So I was a solo founder for more than a year. It was very lonely. I had nobody to run things by. And even that slightest second opinion becomes really helpful. VCs are also worried about solo founders, especially first-time solo founders. One of the big things is that if you're busy with life and it pauses, your whole entire business pauses. And that has been several times where I was too busy on my physician job and everything got backed up and bottlenecked at me. So ideally, 2 to 3 people co-founder is the ideal size. So before I touch on getting the tools you need to succeed, and that is very important. Knowledge is power. For me, that was going to school and getting my MBA. But there's also other things you can learn, such as Venture Cafe and I-10 provide exceptional educational materials. So going out and learning and gaining those skills, attending lectures, workshops like you guys are doing right now is perfect. And I often go to some things more than once because each time I go to it, my knowledge and angle is different. I take something different away each time, and that iterative learning is going to be really helpful. Even though I graduated already from MBA school, I actually still go back. So right now, I'm sitting in a pricing strategy class because I realize I don't know how to price my product, and I'm going to fill that gap in the knowledge. I found the ecosystem to be also very friendly. And it might be because everyone who's been around the block realize how difficult this life is, how hard it is, and also how amazing and beneficial to our community and society it is when one of us succeeds. So I've often found that reaching out for a meeting, asking for help, or even like messaging a stranger on LinkedIn has been really receptive. So don't be afraid to reach out. We're all there to help. So what about my other responsibilities? We are working professionals, and it's time consuming. Starting a business is time consuming and resource consuming, 2 of the things we do not have. So we have full-time jobs. We might have families, mortgages, bills, and a social life. I often see young college grads working on their startup full-time, and I'm kind of envious. It's kind of freeing seeing them not have the responsibilities that we have. But you gotta remember, we also have the expertise, the life skills, the network, and the ability to earn money than they do. So use that and harvest that to your advantage. So how did I do it all? So I'm currently still working a full-time physician job. Actually, over the last 5 years, I worked 125% because we were short on staff in the hospital. I went to MBA school part-time, and I started a company. But what this means is that I had to give some stuff up. So for my work, I worked overnight shifts because we get hour differentials. It's like 1.3 to 1.5 times. So that means I work less. But that also meant that sometimes when I get off to work at 7 a.m., I had something going on at 12 that day. So I only slept 2 to 4 hours. But this was my own willingness to give up, to make my entrepreneurship dream come true. Let me see. I'm also very lucky to have a very supportive fiance. I don't currently have children right now, even though we're hoping for some soon, but I've seen entrepreneurs with family and children be very successful. The big thing is you need your spouse on board. And then, families don't always see your vision to all of this. My parents didn't want me to go to MBA school. Actually, specifically my mother. She wanted grandkids. Let's just be, true on that. But after talking to her, after some time, she started to see my mission and my vision and my traction. And one day she called me and said, "Do you need help funding your startup?" And that was a game changer, because you start to enroll people in your vision and in your mission. And I've been really lucky to have won some pitch competitions, but that money is running out. So harvest whatever resources you can find. Amazon Web Services has a startup fund where they give you services for free. For Scandalaris, which is a WashU network, if you're part of it, they have various resources. They have interns that they may be able to give you, depending on what your business is. Let's see, and then because I'm so plugged into WashU network, you can check with other schools and so forth. But WashU also has students working for credit. So for example, the engineering, they have a senior design project for the biomedical engineering students, and I'm sure there's other similar classes where they take outside project as well. And the students work for a semester or two on your project for free as a startup, and they get school credit. So those are some of the resources you could all look into. Okay. Sorry, I lost my mouse. Where did it go? And so with all of that, I always stay true to my mission and vision. And share your founder story. Allow others to feel your pain point, and allow others to enroll in your mission to define the norm. Remember how near the beginning I said the most worrisome feedback was because physicians didn't believe in this product? They didn't believe it was necessary? Well, that's often the case with innovation. You have different feedback. So you often have two forces. One force is the traction pulling you forward, and the other force is the resistance pulling you back. So you want to find the things that will have the most traction and the least resistance to propel your startup forward. And that could be whether in the teammates you find, the collaborators, or market segmentation. So you may think, who is this handsome doctor I have? This is my friend Brandon. He's actually one of my med school friends. And in the beginning, I recruited him as an expert interviewer and saw feedback. He didn't see the necessity of MiDoc. He didn't believe that we really needed something like this. But over the last year, he started becoming a close follower. Sorry, am I blocking people? He became a close follower of my progress. And he started volunteering to help. And then this summer, he reached out and wanted to join the core team. So as of this summer, he's my new co-founder and CMO of MiDoc. And that is what happens when you enroll people in your mission and turn them into believers. Follow your heart, and don't be afraid to take a leap. Entrepreneurship has so many up and downs. It's like a 24/7 roller coaster ride. And I think the uncertainty about it is the hardest part. And even though there's been days I really wanted to give up, but to be honest, I've enjoyed most of it. And if you're like me and enjoy this life too, then you know entrepreneurship is right for you. Embrace the good days. Embrace the oopsie daisy days. Embrace the rebound days. Embrace all of it and enjoy it. And I wish I had a good story on MiDoc for following your heart, but I have actually another bigger story on taking a leap. So does anyone recognize this website? No? Yeah? Did you want to tell people what it is?
Well, it's like you have to get an invitation to be able to join, right?
Oh, I don't think, no. It's an online dating site. Yeah, so it's an online dating site. So in 2019, I've been trying free online dating sites for about 10 years. No luck. And online dating is rough. How many people have done it? Yeah, we got a handful of there. Like, you talk to strangers, you have to get ready for the date, and you drive to the date, and then if the date is bad, you sit there for like an hour and a half, trying to smile through it. It kind of sounds like a business meeting, doesn't it? So, I thought in 2019, the only difference about this is you have to pay for it. So I'm like, okay, let's try a paid website. So in 2019, I signed up for it. I met a nice naval officer. And the week I met him, he was like, well, I'm going to Naples, Italy for my job. I was like, well, that's a very long distance relationship. Ain't doing that. But that was 2019. Do you guys remember the year that came after it? 2020. What happened in 2020? Yeah, the pandemic year. So when everyone was home quarantined and nobody was leaving their house, I got to know this gentleman a little bit. And when I got to know him, something in my gut said that maybe he's worth meeting. So here he was in Naples, Italy, across the world. And when Italy allowed their first tourist, on that first day, I booked a plane ticket all the way to Italy. Now, this is somebody who won't even drive 30 minutes across St. Louis to meet a person, yet I flew across the Atlantic Ocean to meet this man. And when you have a feeling in your gut that you believe, and I believed in it, not sure what I was thinking looking back, but I believed in him, take the leap. We're getting married in January. Thank you.
In Naples?
No, not in Naples, in St. Louis. It would be nice in Naples, though. So don't forget to take the leap if you believe in it. Have faith in yourself. You'll be pleasantly surprised. And you can't go through an entrepreneurship presentation without talking about the imposter syndrome. So can somebody in the audience help me define what is the imposter syndrome? Anyone heard of it? Oh, yes.
Basically, you don't think that you really deserve to be where you are.
Yeah, very correct. So I'm just going to repeat so everyone can hear. She said, you don't think you deserve where you are. That is me every day for the last decade. Okay? Because medicine people are really prone to this. We get thrown into these high-risk circumstances with very little, what we think, knowledge, and we have to make do with it. But I have very bad imposter syndrome. And one of the biggest talks is by Amy Cuddy, a TED Talk on imposter syndrome, is power poses. Has some people watched this? It's actually really helpful. Standing in certain poses will change your mind about how you think about yourself. It's worth watching. But the other big message about it is you have heard the phrase, fake it until you make it. That's not what you need to do. You need to fake it until you become it. And what that means is that you need to convince yourself in your head that you belong there, because you do, okay? Every one of you guys belong here, and you need to make yourself believe that. So here's me faking it. I was 3 months into the MiDoc startup project. I didn't know what I was doing, and I had made it into a national, international Poets and Quants Big Ideas Bounce pitch competition. My very first pitch competition, I didn't even know what a pitch really was at that time. So here I am with the big names such as Doug Vilhard, Akeem Shannon from Flipstick, who you guys had the opportunity to meet on Tuesday, Maxine Clark, founder and CEO of Build a Bear, and John Byrne from Sea Change Media. So, I call it beginner's luck, but you may also say that's my imposter syndrome speaking. So, but really, believe in yourself, because you have wonderful opportunities come up. And the last thing is enjoy the process and celebrate the achievements. So, despite how difficult and how lonely the beginning are, as you start converting people, you'll get more support. Perseverance is a key to entrepreneurship, and through perseverance, sharing my mission, hard work, new opportunities started coming up. And I really don't think they would have been possible without my work through MiDoc. And here I am at my MBA graduation 4 years later after starting it, and because of MiDoc, I had won the Entrepreneurship Award. I also started seeing other career things coming into my life, such as teaching at the medical school and becoming faculty at the business school. And I actually got both of those positions before I even graduated from MBA. And the reason I wanted to highlight that is because those were not positions that I actually sought after myself. I had opened up to the space. I had started a network and said, I'm interested in this space and my mission. And when openings came up, people asked me, are you interested? And I started pursuing them. So don't be afraid to share. Don't be afraid to be out there and share to people what your mission is and what you're trying to do, because opportunities will start flowing in. And equally, this is how I got invited to speak at St. Louis Startup, and wonderful week for everyone. So hands off to all the organizers, thank you so much. And likewise for something like, she leads in the Olin Business Magazine. And then last thing is hot off the press this week is St. Louis Journal naming one of the 40 under 40 honorees. Thank you. Now, I think there's so many more amazing people out there that deserves the recognition, and I really appreciate it, but you can see how I'm still battling with my own imposter syndrome. So, so what's next? This was me residency match day, where we got to open our red envelopes. These envelopes contained where we got to work and live for the next couple of years. Yeah, it's all in that envelope. So I'm really excited to be opening my entrepreneurship red envelope. And a couple big things in my life is I'm gonna continue working on MiDoc, and we have some exciting changes coming up in the fall. I'm gonna still be doing work as a physician, and this was a picture taken with a sweet little girl when I went to Brazil and did home visits. And because the entrepreneurship work has picked up, I'm gonna be cutting down on my physician hours. So, you gotta balance what you have in your life, right? And the last thing is marry the man. I flew all the way to Italy to meet Mike. So even though you see us wearing opposing baseball caps in the picture, we actually make a great life team. Why? Because I converted him into a believer. So quickly, why innovate? Find your passion and defy the norm. Love the problem. Aim for the painkiller. Understand your customers. Seek feedback and treat it like gold. Check your ego at the door. Iterate, iterate, iterate. Leverage talent, as teamwork is key. Pivot when things aren't going well. Balance your own priorities. Enjoy the process and celebrate your achievements. And most of all, follow your heart and convert others into believers. So why innovate? Why me? Why now? Because I see it in all your eyes. So how can I help you? Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much. It was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
and
Thank you for
really
having me here.
You really touched on something that hit home for me. You really touched on something that hit home for me today around feedback. So I'm a non-tech founder, and I have a really big, great, amazing advisory team, pre-seed team that give a lot of feedback. However, I'm an industry expert in what I do. How do you separate the feedback from what's your ego and what's useful based on your team?
Yeah, so, I often find that depending on what space you are, so you're talking about like people on your board that you've hired or just
In general. So
General.
So for me, I have an advisory board.
Yeah.
And then I'm in an accelerator.
Okay.
Right. So then you have the VC investors who know investing. I'm sorry. So you have the VC investors who understand investing.
Yeah.
And then you have the people who've done the tech thing
Yeah.
as founders. And then you have me who's in the beauty industry who understands the problem that I'm solving.
Yes.
So how do you take that feedback and decide what's useful and what's not?
Yeah. So what I found is that you know your population, right? You know the problem you're trying to solve. Now, is that totally contradictory to what you're trying to solve, or can you kind of work on it as like an enhancement? Do you see what I mean? So if it's totally contradictory or totally in a different direction, as a founder and as an expert, you need to hold your ground. sometimes, like what we're building, we also are balancing our priorities. So for example, we have, experts on the stylistic design, the comfort and so forth of our vest. But we went out and surveyed users. They said they want accuracy, they want reliable information. They will give on a little bit on the comfort, and they will give a lot on the design. So in our first iteration, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we have to deliver what they want, right? Not what I want, but what they want. So that's how you balance it. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
And I'm sure other people have experiences too, and open to opening up the floor to share other experiences. Okay.
This is more just a question. It's
Yeah.
not to answer yours, but just a question about your
Yes.
journey. You talked about how doctors were skeptical, but patients, it was 90% plus, are really interested in this idea resonated with them. So ultimately, doctors, though, are your paying customers. Can you talk about what it was like to gain that first paying customer or that traction? And please excuse me, I missed the first 10 minutes of your presentation.
no
So if
problem.
you said that, please excuse me.
Yeah, so it was actually really interesting because remember, so I talked about two forces, right? Your traction and your resistance. So who's going to really love your product and be your advocate, almost be like your cheerleading team, and who's going to be like pulling you back? So initially, when I actually went out speaking to doctors, they were like, we do just fine. They have some vagueness to medicine, but to be honest, there's always going to be vagueness to medicine because not everyone is the same. We are not all one cookie cutter. So there's already some vagueness, and they already knew how to handle that. I was actually throwing a curveball into what they know. But over this, and I think that was when we first started doing telemedicine, and they were like, well, it is what it is, and I'm just going to accept it. Over time, actually, doctors have started coming around. More and more of them have been like, yeah, I really want this, and some of them being like, yeah, we need this. So I think it's part of allowing them to see where you're coming from, because some people, even though they've been in the industry, they may not totally understand your vision. Where you're coming from. So for me, it was just like, what happened if I really provided you this information in a cheap, convenient way? Do you think it will be helpful? They're like, yeah, sure. But they weren't quite on board, as in, they're like, well, I can still do without. Do you see what I mean? But patients really want it because it goes back to the psychological domain. They wanted to know and trust their doctor. If they're going to be at home and pay for a service, they better get a goddamn good service. Yeah. So there are a lot of things actually that we do to make sure the patients feel satisfied. So sometimes during your actually wellness check, the doctors didn't actually need to listen to you or listen to your lungs. Like, if you're talking about your foot, do I really need to listen to your lungs? Probably not, unless you're septic. But they still do it to make sure that, you got the 12-point, card check through to feel better. But there's some times where it really does make helpful. I think, and I saw a question over there. Yeah, afterwards.
My question's pretty quick. On the
Yeah.
previous slide, you had a bullet point that said, love the problem, not the solution.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on what you meant?
Yeah, of course. So a lot of times people will think and they suddenly come up with this really cool idea. I actually saw this a lot in engineering. So I was a human factors engineer. What that is that I interface between the technology and the person. So I make sure that people can use the technology so they can understand the technology. And that kind of what led me to some of my design decisions. But I would see this a lot as an engineer where people would build these cool, flashy things like colors and lights. And when I asked, what purpose does this serve? And I remember it was our senior design project display day, and they're like, I don't know, it looks cool. I was like, but it solves no problem. And if you were to try to take that to the market, nobody would buy it. So love the problem you're trying to solve. And the bigger the problem, the better. And that's why I say do the painkiller. So let's just say you have broken your foot okay, you're in a lot of pain. How much money would you pay for pain medication? A lot, right? You would pay quite high. But if you were just a vitamin, something good to have that may benefit you, 10 years down the road, how much would you pay for it? Maybe, maybe not, or very little. So that's why you want to find a problem that is so severe that people's like, I need you to solve my pain right now. That will have the most traction. So if you have two things, and you can make it look cool, eventually down the line, but if you have two things and you were to pick the biggest problem and pick the biggest pain. And that's also how you innovate for good, because you're going to make improvements in so many more people's lives. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your presentation.
Oh,
I
thank you
could
for
see
having
that
me
this
here.
is something that Doctors Without Borders came to mind.
Yeah.
And using this in third world countries. But my business question is something related, like how did you interface, like where did the vests and the stethoscopes, and did you get them back, or how did you put that into the business model fast, because people needed this help right away in COVID?
Oh, so are you talking about the design part or the logistics?
The physical stuff that's needed, like the vests and the stethoscopes and all that. Like, where did people get them? Because they couldn't go in.
Oh, so we're actually still under development, so we're not actually on the market yet. So it takes a while to develop, and it takes a while to pass FDA. So we're still working on it. But there's a couple working models we're going with. One is, there's so many things that's been delivered so fast, right? Your food, it gets cool within 30 minutes. So how can we harp into that system? How can we harp into Amazon, like Amazon Health? Maybe they want to partner with us and get this delivered. We're also talking to some other potential partnership. But there's also a segment, so let me just back up. It's a business question here. I have some business slides for you. I wasn't planning on presenting on this because I didn't think it was that interesting, but okay. So here, we're actually trying to prevent two things. One is ER visits, right? You feel sick, you debating, do I need to go to the ER? One is hospital readmissions or hospital home. This is when you've been to the hospital and you are leaving, but there's a lot of people that return, and that's costing the system a lot of money. So how do we keep you healthy at home? The hardest model, based on your logistics question, is this one. How do you prevent ER visits? Now, if you have such severe chest pain you think you're going to die, go to the ER. I'm not trying to stop you, that is a perfectly valid reason to go. But if you started to feel a little sick and you're like, do I need to see a doctor? I'm, in bed all day long. I don't want to get dressed, drive half an hour to my doctor, and so forth. You have some time. And usually in that time space, you have time to order a vest, get an appointment. So let's just say I started feeling sick now. You're like, okay, I'm going to make a doctor appointment for tomorrow morning. You get the vest delivered in your home, and then you keep it for that week too. So you have your doctor's appointment, and in that week, if you get sick suddenly at 2 a.m., you have a vest, and you can follow up with your doctor. Hopefully, now that we have telemedicine, a lot of services would be more 24/7, and I think that's what some places are starting to provide. You have that question to ask at 2 a.m. Do I need to go to the ER right now since I got worse? And that's the segment we're targeting. But for example, if you got into some accident right now or something, you need to go to the ER. So we're not trying to prevent people from going, but trying to provide convenience and affordability to the health system, because at 2 a.m., the only option you have is the ER, and I see that a lot. A lot of people come at 2 a.m. and they pay that really hefty copay because they want a question answered, am I safe? And that's a question we're trying to provide them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Can y'all hear me? Okay. So I talk a lot, and I'm an expert in the field that I'm in. I'm a business consulting agency, so I help people with operational stuff, and then also getting people started with their businesses, filing paperwork. How did you like find a way to be more concise when you're pitching things to people or explaining what you do, or talking to potential clients or people interested in investing in your business? How were you able to kind of like narrow everything down and make it more attractive to people?
It's really hard. I'm a talker too. I write everything out, as you can see. Here's my whole presentation. I didn't even go through all of it. I write everything out and I edit. I edit, and skim down. And some of the tips I received when doing various pitch workshop is pitch it to somebody else. What was your takeaway? And maybe I should get feedback from you guys. What your takeaway from today is? If I didn't hit the takeaway, I'm clearly doing something wrong. Do it again. And that's really helpful, because if somebody who hasn't heard your pitch or knows your product, if you wanted to take away A and they took away B, redo it. Yeah. So I feel like it's a lot of trial and error, and then redoing it over again and testing it out. That feedback, it's really helpful in all sense.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Shakaya. I wanted to reference the first question that was asked with regards to how do you determine making the best decision when you have the different teams coming at you. And I guess how I thought about it was in reference to you actually being a physician and having to make the different decisions. So you may have the nurse that's giving you information on the patient, you have therapists giving you information on the patient, but ultimately you lend to the knowledge that you were given from medical school and your training. And so I would defer to that when it comes to making your decision, is truly lend to the knowledge that you have in your industry when making the decision.
Yeah.
Just as she does on a daily basis.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
agree with that. And it depends what the decision is, right? If it's a technical decision, and like for technical decisions, like I said, I'm an engineer. I have the background of it, but I don't involve myself so much in it anymore. So I would resolve all technical decisions to the expert. So, but also try to find a medium.
Yeah, I think it's until it's not conflicting with your problem, right? So making sure that whatever the technical decision is actually still serving that purpose that you're there for, to solve that original problem.
And I think what's interesting for me, it's not technical.
Yeah.
That's the part. Like, the technical part is not where they're trying to lead me, but how I explain it to others and how the product is delivered is where I'm getting different feedback. So like, it's not what the product is, it's how we deliver the product to both VCs and the consumer. And that is where, as someone who's never done this before, it can drive you crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's different, like market segment or different audience, you may have two different versions, right? Like the way I explain this to patients is very different than the way I explain it to VC. I have a much more business approach, and then for patients, I have a much more like, how is this going to help you approach? So I don't know if different approaches, but also testing it out.
Yeah. So got two different approaches, and then you still get the same thing when you pitch. But yeah, so darn
Trust-
if you do, darn if you don't.
Well, trust your heart.
Thank you.
Trust your heart. Go with your gut.
Thank you.
You're the one who founded this and created this. You will know the best for your own company.
Thank you.
We have one last question.
Okay, yes.
Hi, it's actually not a question.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, as a visual person, I really appreciate all your great diagrams
Oh,
in your
thank you.
presentation. They were really nice.
Oh, I appreciate that. I try to make it more fun. Okay.
Thank you so much. What a great talk.